Welcome to Engineering Out Loud. This is the seventh deep dive in our series from MECHESOL's MESP Management Development Program. Today's title, Case Studies and Organizational Impact of Project Management.
That's right. We're moving beyond just individual projects today.
Exactly. We're exploring how really smart project management, the effective kind, doesn't just get a project done, but actually shapes the whole company. Culture, efficiency, the works.
We'll be pulling from some training module excerpts that focus specifically on that organizational impact.
And we've got some great real-world case studies, too, to make it all, well, real.
Always helps to see it in action.
So our mission today, basically giving you the inside track on how good PM builds a high-performance culture, boosts efficiency, and really sets the stage for growth. Consider it your shortcut.
A shortcut to understanding why it's so foundational.
Ready to see how project management really fuels organizational success? Think about applying what you hear to your own work. And hey, you can always explore more by visiting mechesolco.com/CPD.
Good place to start.
Okay, so let's dive in. First up, how project management helps build a culture where performance actually thrives.
Right. So the training material makes a key point here. When you establish standard project management practices across an organization.
Like everyone using the same playbook.
Sort of, yeah. It leads to much more consistency and, importantly, efficiency. Different teams start speaking the same language using similar processes.
Okay, so it breaks down those silos you sometimes see between departments.
Precisely. And that uniformity, that common approach, it directly contributes to a performance-driven culture.
How so? What's the direct link?
Well, these established practices bring clarity. Everyone understands the process, they know what's expected, how success is measured. It sounds simple, but it's powerful.
Because clarity leads to accountability.
Exactly. When roles and responsibilities are clearly defined within that project framework, people tend to step up. They own their part. Accountability increases, naturally at all levels.
Makes perfect sense. Clear roles, clear responsibility. I like that. The module also mentions continuous improvement. How does PM bake that in?
Good question. See, project management isn't just a rigid set of rules you follow once. Good PM involves review processes.
Yeah.
Lessons learned sessions, right, after a project finishes.
Right, the postmortem.
Yeah, or whatever you call it. You look at what went well, sure, but crucially, what could be done better next time. This cycle of learning and adapting, that's what fuels continuous improvement. The organization gets better over time.
So it's a system for getting smarter, project by project. Okay, fantastic loop there. Consistency leads to accountability, which feeds into this improvement cycle.
You got it.
Now let's switch gears a bit. The materials also talk a lot about operational efficiencies, specifically through resource management. How does project management drive that?
Yeah, this is a big one. Effective planning and, well, managing your resources, people, budget, equipment, it's absolutely fundamental to project management. And it has a huge impact on efficiency.
How does that work in practice?
Well, the training stresses that it helps cut down waste. Think about it. You avoid over-allocating resources, putting too many people or too much budget on something.
Or having expensive equipment just sitting idle.
Exactly. And you also avoid mismanaging them, using them ineffectively. It's about being strategic.
Can you give a quick example, like maybe manufacturing?
Sure. Manufacturing's a classic. Without tight resource management, you might have raw materials sitting there too long, tying up cash, maybe even going out of date.
Okay.
Or that specialized machine we mentioned sitting idle when it could be working on another priority task. Good PM plans exactly when and where each resource is needed. Maximum utilization.
Got it. And the module mentioned improved ROI too. How does resource management boost the return on investment?
It comes down to value, really. When you carefully plan and track resource, use time, materials, whatever, you get a really clear picture of the true cost of the project.
Because you're minimizing that waste we talked about.
Right. Minimize waste, maximize efficiency, and naturally, the return you get on that project investment goes up. Optimizing resource use is a key organizational impact. Directly hits the bottom line.
Makes solid financial sense. Okay, so we've got culture, we've got efficiency. What about growth? How does project management help an organization, scale up?
The module highlights this really well. Think of established PM processes as a blueprint, a strong, adaptable blueprint.
A blueprint for what exactly?
For handling bigger, more complex projects and programs as the company expands. It provides a framework that can handle increased volume and complexity without, everything falling apart.
So it's like having a solid foundation you can build upon, even as things get more complicated.
That's a great analogy. And it's not just about volume. Good PM frameworks are adaptable. They let you integrate new technologies, maybe new ways of working, like agile methods.
Without causing total chaos in the day-to-day operations.
Exactly. That flexibility is critical for scaling. Growth often means embracing new things, innovating. PM provides the structure to do that smoothly.
That's a really clear picture of the foundations.
Yeah.
Now, let's make this even more concrete. Time for our first case study. The high-tech green building project. Sounds ambitious.
It definitely was. Developing a state-of-the-art sustainable office building, packed with green tech, and of course the classic constraints, on time, within budget.
And the goal wasn't just functional, right?
Yeah.
It was about being a pioneer.
Correct. High sustainability goals, pushing the boundaries, but without sacrificing the quality or the look and feel.
Okay, our module flags, scope management here. What was key?
Well, they started with a clear definition, obviously, specifying sustainable materials, smart tech integration, all that. But the interesting part was how dynamically they managed it.
What do you mean by dynamic?
They used a detailed work breakdown structure, breaking the project into smaller bits. This structure actually allowed them to adapt the design. They could even incorporate new green tech that became available during the project.
Wow, that requires serious flexibility. What about the schedule? I saw mention of weather delays, even discovering an endangered species habitat. That must have thrown a wrench in the works.
Oh, it did. Big challenges. But they used the critical path method, effectively focusing on the sequence of tasks that absolutely had to finish on time.
So they knew where to focus their efforts.
Precisely. And to make up for lost time from those delays, they actually accelerated some of the interior work. Clever juggling act, really, to keep the overall timeline on track. Great proactive schedule management.
Impressive. And costs. Green tech could be pricey, right?
Yeah.
Especially the cutting-edge stuff. How'd they manage the budget?
Meticulous planning up front.
Yeah.
Definitely. And they built in contingencies for those unexpected things. But they also actively used value engineering.
Value engineering, meaning?
Looking for cost-saving alternatives, different materials, maybe slight design tweaks, but, and this is crucial, they did it without compromising the core sustainability goals. That was non-negotiable.
Balancing act again. And quality. How do you ensure quality with so much innovation?
They embedded quality standards right from the start. Specific benchmarks for energy efficiency, for example. They even used techniques like Six Sigma to minimize waste and defects during the build. Quality was paramount.
So the module calls this a classic example of balancing the triple constraints: scope, schedule, cost. Any specific strategies that stood out?
Yeah, like when adding new tech, which adjusted the scope, threatened the schedule, they strategically added extra work shifts, maintain momentum.
Investing resources to protect the timeline.
Right, and like we said on costs, they were constantly finding innovative ways to stay within budget, not just reacting to overruns.
Makes sense. And what about the resources themselves? People, materials?
Strategic allocation. They brought in experts, real specialists in sustainable building, and for materials, especially things with long lead times, they had really tight procurement and management processes. No point having delays because something didn't arrive.
So what was the final result? Did they hit those ambitious targets?
They did. Achieved IL-the-EAD Platinum certification, that's the top tier for green buildings. And they hit net zero energy consumption, really exceeded their quality benchmarks.
And the organizational impact?
Huge. The project's success positioned the company as a leader, a real pioneer in green building. It attracted new clients, new business, directly fueled organizational growth.
Wow, that's a fantastic example. Project success, driving company's success. Okay, let's shift to the second case study. The global software upgrade rollout. Sounds like a completely different beast.
Totally different scale and type of challenge, yeah.
Yeah.
A huge multinational corporation rolling out a new software system globally, affecting over 100,000 employees.
Ooh.
The goal was integrating systems, boosting efficiency, getting better data accuracy.
Managing the scope for something that massive must have been incredibly complex.
Monumental, yeah. The scope covered custom development, massive training programs, and a really carefully phased rollout plan. Critically, they had strong change control.
Meaning they could handle feedback or needed adjustments.
Exactly, especially feedback coming from the initial pilot tests. They could adjust the scope in a controlled way.
And then that phased rollout. Essential for the schedule, I imagine.
Absolutely. You couldn't just flip a switch for 100,000 people. They started with pilot programs in smaller offices, test it out, gather feedback, fix bugs.
Learn lessons before going big.
Right. It allowed them to adjust the timeline, refine the implementation process based on actual performance data before hitting the major locations.
Cost must have been under a microscope, too, with that many stakeholders.
Intense scrutiny, high visibility project, so budgeting was absolutely critical. They did a very thorough cost-benefit analysis upfront to justify the investment, showing the long-term savings the upgrade would bring.
And quality.
Mhm.
Ensuring a smooth transition for all those users without disrupting work seems vital. How did they manage that?
Operators testing, definitely, but also setting up continuous improvement loops during the pilot phases. That feedback wasn't just noted, it was acted upon to fine-tune the final software and the rollout process itself, minimize disruption.
So, balancing the triple constraints here. Vast scope, tight schedule, potential for unexpected costs. How did they manage that balance?
It was a constant juggle. The team had to be agile. They dynamically scaled resources, bringing in more help when needed for certain phases, and they used agile project management methods to adapt quickly to changing needs or issues that popped up.
Resource allocation sounds like a global logistics puzzle, getting the right expertise everywhere.
It was. They brought in top software developers and, importantly, UX designers to make the software intuitive, less training needed that way.
Right.
Then they strategically deployed trainers and IT support teams for each rollout phase. On the ground, help when people needed it most.
And what were they measuring? What were the quality benchmarks?
User satisfaction scores were key, plus specific system performance metrics. They monitored these closely post-implementation to make sure the system delivered on its promises.
Okay, so the big question. What was the organizational impact after all that effort?
Significant gains. They saw a major reduction in redundant processes across the company, and decision-making became much more data-driven because the data was finally accurate and integrated.
I think too.
Big improvements in operational efficiency and overall productivity. Real, measurable organizational growth stemmed directly from getting that project right.
Wow. Two very different projects, but both showing that powerful link between project execution and broader organizational success really drives the point home.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we wrap up, maybe we should quickly recap some of those core project management elements that underpin these successes. Our module emphasizes comprehensive planning as the foundation.
Couldn't agree more. That means clear scope definition, really nailing down objectives and deliverables, schedule development setting realistic timelines, and careful budget allocation forecasting and assigning the funds. Get that wrong, and you're already behind.
Right. Plan the work, then effective execution. Work the plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which involves smart resource management, deploying people, materials, money effectively, and ongoing quality assurance, checking the work, making adjustments, keeping standards high.
And you can't just execute blindly. There's monitoring and controlling running alongside.
Continuously. Tracking progress, using performance measurement, KPIs, metrics, whatever works.
Okay.
Proactive risk management, seeing problems coming and having a plan. And effective change management, handling those inevitable curveballs in a structured way.
And finally, you have to finish strong with project closure.
Yes. Don't just drift off. Confirm deliverables, get sign-off, make sure it's all done. Proper documentation and analysis capturing data for next time. And that crucial post-project review, learning the lessons, feeding that continuous improvement cycle we talked about.
Okay, so those are the core mechanics. The module also touches on the broader framework, right? Like PMBOK.
It does. It grounds these practices in established frameworks like the Project Management Institute's PMBOK guide. It talks through the process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, closing.
And the knowledge areas.
Yep, covers those too. Things like scope, schedule, cost, quality, risk, resources, communications. The whole picture.
It also mentions different methodologies like Agile and Waterfall.
And tools like Gantt charts or the critical path method we mentioned. Plus, clarifying roles, sponsor, manager, team members. Everyone needs to know their part.
And it really hammers home the strategic role of PM, doesn't it? Achieving business goals, delivering actual value.
Fundamentally, it stresses quality and risk management throughout, and always that focus on continuous improvement.
The module also covers evaluation and certification, doesn't it? How does the MESP program approach that?
Right. It uses comprehensive assessments, quizzes, analyzing case studies like the ones we discussed to really check understanding against those PMBOK standards.
Not just theory, though.
No, definitely not. There are project simulations, opportunities to apply the knowledge in practice, make decisions, skills verification through knowledge checks and performance tasks.
And the goal is proficiency recognition. Exactly.
Earning a certification demonstrates mastery, aligned with PMI standards. It's valuable for professional advancement, career growth, building reputation and credibility in the field.
Great overview. So pulling it all together.
Effective project management, it's clear, isn't just about ticking boxes on a project plan.
No, it's much bigger. It's a powerful force. It shapes culture towards high performance, like we saw,
Optimizes how you use resources, driving efficiency, cuts waste.
and provides those scalable frameworks you need for sustainable growth. The case studies really showed that in action.
And it's all core to the MESP Management Development Program.
So here's a final thought for you listening. Think about your own organization's culture, its efficiency. Where could applying these project management principles more strategically make the biggest difference?
Good question to ponder.
Ready to become that driver of organizational impact yourself, using expert project management skills. Visit mechesolco.com/CPT. Learn more, take the next step in your professional development.
Definitely worth checking out.
This has been Engineering Out Loud, our deep dive into the organizational impact of project management, drawing from MECHESOL's MESP Management Development Program. Thanks for tuning in.
Until next time.